Math 3, Unit 8, Section 1. Today we're talking about sampling and study methods. So we're going to read through this here together. Have you ever wondered how news broadcasters ever came up with information like the approval ratings for the President of the United States? How they determine the average number of text messages a person sends or receives in a month based upon their ages? When the population is too large, a researcher uses a sample that is a suitable representation of the population. A sample is part of an entire population. The class you're sitting in is a sample of the high school. More than likely, the students in the classroom are not a good representation of your high school. When you have a sample that favors a particular part of a population, then that sample is considered very good, biased. The goal is to gather a fair sample that represents the population. Okay, so definitions. We have a population is all the members of a set. A sample is a part of the population. A bias is a systematic error introduced that makes the sample not a fair representation of the population. Okay, so up to this point so far, do we have any questions, or so far does this kind of make sense? Yes? No questions? Okay. So there are different types of study methods. Okay? What type of study to use? Here we go. Before data is collected, we must decide on what we want to collect. There are various types of studies used when data is collected. Some are simpler to conduct than others. However, the main focus for any method is to reduce the effects of bias with the study. There are three different types of studies we will focus on in Math 3. The first one we are going to focus on is observation. So observation is when you measure or observe members of a sample in such a way that they are not affected by the study. So you are just watching and observing. The second one is experimental. And when you have an experiment and you have an experimental method, you have a control and a non-controlled group. Members of a sample are divided into two groups. You impose a treatment on one group, but not on the other control group. Then you compare the effect on the treated group to the control group. Okay, and lastly, a survey. And a survey is where you ask every member of the sample a set of questions. So next, determine which type of study from above should be used in the scenarios. Okay, geologists from a university located in California would like to determine the time gaps between major droughts that the West Coast has experienced. Okay, so I'm just gonna have you think for a minute, what type of study method would you use here? Good, observation. One thing about observation, hold on a second. When you're doing an observation, you can also go backwards in time. So for instance, if you're wanting to study the drought, it would make more sense to go back in time and see what's happened over a certain period of time versus waiting for things to happen from this point on. So sometimes observational is going backwards, okay? B, the senior class at a local high school is deciding upon which of the three possible speeches is going to be delivered at the graduation ceremony. What type of method do you think you should use?
Survey.
Very good, survey. Sometimes also you can actually take a survey of the entire population. You don't have to take a survey of a sample. So if you're deciding on a speech for graduation, do you think they're going to take a sample of a population or ask the whole population? The whole, good. Okay, C, A major lawn care company is attempting to develop a new fertilizer that promotes a certain type of lawn to grow healthy at an accelerated rate. Very good. Experimental. D. An international bike company has developed a new way to weave carbon fibers to make their bike frame stronger and lighter. The bike company already has the strongest and lightest bike frame on the market. Very good. Experimental. Because they are going to be weaving new fibers and everything together, they're trying to change it to make it stronger and lighter. And so that would be experimental because you're changing something that already exists. E. The Gallup poll is interested in the percent of people that are going to vote in the next presidential election. Survey. Okay, so those were study methods. Now we're going to talk about sampling methods. So you have different ways of doing the experiment, but then you have different ways of choosing people to participate. Okay? So this first one, it says select any members of the population who are conveniently and readily available. This is called a convenience sample. Okay, the next one, it says select only members of the population who volunteer for the sample. That, what? Close. It's called self-selected. And so self-selected, just so you know, you are choosing yourself to participate. So I don't know if this really happens anymore, but I remember there was a time where you could like listen to the radio and they would say, call in and give us your opinion on this or whatever. They do? Okay. So now it's called self-selected. You are choosing yourself to participate in that survey, to participate and be part of that sample. So that is called self-selected. Okay, 3. Order the population in some way and then select from it at regular intervals. That is called systematic.
How does that do?
All members of the population are equally likely to be chosen.
Random.
Very good. It's actually called a simple random. And then the 5th one, a population is divided into groups with some identifiable characteristics, and then a random sample of each group is taken, and that is called stratified. Simple, yes, simple random. Okay, so there are a couple methods here that are biased, and then there's some that are not. Which ones do you think are probably biased?
Systematic.
Self-selected.
These two are biased. The systematic one, you're going to order the population. Like, let's say what they mean here for systematic, and we'll have some other examples. This would be like we numbered our class, let's say, 1 to 40, and then I drew out a number. So systematic, so I draw out a number, and then let's say I draw that number, and then from then on I choose every 5th number. Okay, so there's like a system to it. So everybody is chosen at random from a list. Okay, simple random is just like, like me pulling the sticks. You're just randomly choosing people. Okay, and so there's not bias because I'm not reading the names or anything. I'm just pulling one. So that's a simple random. It's just you have all the members and every single person has a more likely chance to be chosen. Stratified is where you group them. So let's say, for instance, at our high school, we group you guys as freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors, and then within each group, we then take a random sample from that group. So stratified is where you're grouping them and then taking random samples within those groups. Self-selected, anybody can choose themselves. So it's not random, really. You're just choosing yourself to participate. And convenience is you're just taking whatever's convenient. It's not really a good sample. It's just whatever's right in front of you. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit. So we want to choose the sampling method for these situations below. And then we want to talk about is a certain part of the population being overrepresented or underrepresented? And is the wording of the question, and wait a second. Oh, just kidding. Okay. I was reading something wrong here. But it says what can contribute to bias. So this is telling you these are the different things that can contribute to the bias. And then below we're going to decide which sampling method we should use and would it have bias. Okay? Or what sampling method is being used. Okay, let's read A. Here we go. John was walking through the campus and asked people to volunteer to be part of a survey. He is trying to obtain a sample of the students at his high school. He did his best to make sure the number of students he selected from the freshman class was equal to all the other classes. What type of sampling method do you think that is? So he's going around and he's asking people, will you volunteer and be part of my survey? So that is self-selected because people can say yes or no. Okay? So this is called self-selected. Do we think that there is bias on this one?
Doesn't it just say the freshman class?
He did his best, but remember that it could be very biased. What if he went out there and he is only asking questions on a day where a whole group is gone? Like, let's say, you know, those of you going out on a field trip today, if somebody went out and is taking a survey of the campus, but all the people, like maybe they're asking questions about what do you want to be when you grow up? But all of you that are involved in like the child development classes and stuff are off campus. So when they're going around asking, nobody wants to be a teacher because everybody that wanted to be a teacher is off campus. And so basically, unless you have some sort of system where you are asking, there's a good chance you're asking everyone in the population, that it has bias. So anytime you're self-selecting, it's going to be bias. Okay, B. Frito-Lay makes a product called Doritos, which is produced in a factory. The quality inspectors for the factory would like to collect a few of the bags produced in the factory to see if the weight of the bag meets the specific amount acceptable by Frito-Lay. The inspector took the next 50 bags on the conveyor belt to inspect. What type of sample do you think that one is?
Convenience.
Convenience is correct. So if it was like some sort of systematic, he would like choose the 5th bag and then every 20 bags he would choose another one. That would be some sort of like systematic where you're taking one and then you're waiting and then you're taking another one in specific intervals. The convenience one, he's like, okay, I'm just going to take the next 50 bags. Well, maybe different people are operating the machines. Maybe there's multiple machines. So
What if they're not?
we don't know, right? But because it's convenience, there's going to be some sort of bias in it. Okay? Yes. 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 Okay. Raul obtained an alphabetical list of everyone at his school. He then numbered them 1, 2, 2,500. He then got a list of random digits and used the list to obtain his sample. Very good. Simple random is correct. Is simple random bias? So let's just go ahead and put here not bias. Okay, so do we understand simple random? So everybody's numbered and then he just randomly from 1 to 2,500 had like a number generator give him so many numbers and then those are the people that were chosen. Okay? All right, D. Maureen divided her school into 4 groups, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. She listed everyone in each class and numbered them. After that, she randomly selected students from each class using some computer software. These selected students then represented the school. What do you think?
Stratified.
Very good. Stratified is correct. And like it's actually called like stratified random sample, but we're just going to call it stratified. If that's okay with everybody. And would we say that's biased or not biased?
No.
Good. Okay, and the last one. A math teacher wanted to select a sample of students based upon 2 periods of Math 3 classes. The instructor numbered each student starting with 1 and ending with 70. The teacher then decided to take every 10th person wherever he or she started. The teacher used a calculator to randomly select the value 45. At that point, the teacher counted down the list of students to the 10th person, and then the 10th person got added to the sample.
Systematic.
Very good. Systematic. And would we say that is biased or not biased? Good. So, do you notice a difference between the different samples now? Or different type of surveys? Oops, sorry. Any questions?
Randomly